Out with the old and in with the new. Hey, how's it going, guys? We're here with the latest release from Tenshinhan for the Dragonballz S.H Figuarts line. And wow, it's actually the very first official twin pack we've got. It's the re-release of Tien with his green cloak around his top, so he's no longer shirtless, and with a fully articulated Chiaotzu, which is awesome. The box design is your usual. Now in Japan this is a premium Bandai release, and yeah, on the back here we do have a nice selection of images for the posing that he can do, along with Chiaotzu there and his additional hands. And if we swing around to the front here, on the front we can see the Tamashii Web symbol here, so for a Japanese release that does show that it's a premium Bandai release, along with the Toei sticker, the golden one, and the Tamashii Nations quality seal. So yeah, let's pop them open and see what they look like. Okay, so I've got them out of the box here so we can get a good look at the accessories that they come with. So we've got the Tien body and the Chiaotzu one on the right there. And starting with Tien, we've got the 3 additional heads. So we've got the open mouth screaming when he's doing his, what was it, Keyhole Call, I believe. What was it in English? Tri-beam cannon, I believe, the attack is. Anyway, the next head up we've got the open mouth, teeth gritting kind of smirk, pretty cool. And then the kind of concentrated look there. And for his additional hands, he's got a special effect hands there, which combine to make the triangle. And then the martial arts grips and the open palm and the 2 finger and thumb spread hand, I guess. And we'll get a closer look at that a bit later. For Chiaotzu himself, well, he doesn't come with any additional heads. He does have some hands, so he's got his 2 finger pointer ones and his open palms. So yeah, not too bad. It would have been cool to get another head on him. But for the first twin pack release, yeah, I think so far the accessories that he comes with is pretty cool. Let's take them out of their clamshell packaging and get a good look at their articulation and overall build quality. Okay, so I've got the 2 out of their packaging here, and straight up the Cell Saga look for Tien here is looking really good. The body itself, I would say from the waist down and the arms, is going to be identical to the Saiyan Saga release. And we'll get a closer look at the 2 for comparison a bit later in this video. But one thing I do want to point out, he does have lovely shading all along his pants. Mostly on the front, around the back, not too much, but a little bit on the sides there in the grooves, which is nice to see. It's mostly on his lower legs though, and his upper body. Around the front there is a little bit of shading, but not too much. The scar on his chest, which we can see when it comes around, it's actually slightly deeper than the original release of this figure, so it's nice to see that this part is a bit more, I guess, vicious looking. Same with the scar on his arm there. The face printing is looking really good. I think that's definitely a big improvement over the original release. But if you do have the original Tien, you probably won't notice too much difference of his posability. So we'll focus a bit more on Chiaotzu down here. Now he looks really cool. Definitely very small joints, so I'd say be careful when you do change his hands and articulate him. But the scaling and the size difference of these guys looks really good, and I kind of hope that they re-release the original Dragon Ball line of Goku, maybe Krillin, and that small body. Since the current releases do scale a bit differently to the Dragonballz line. But having Chiaotzu here, man, it does give me hope that we'll get the Pilaf trio sometime soon. But yeah, let's jump in and check out the articulation. So we'll start with Tien first, since there'll be a quick look, and then we can focus a bit more on Chiaotzu. So starting at the top here, Tien has some lovely motion in his head as usual. I mean, his design around the shoulder is pretty simple, so nothing is there to stop his head from swinging around, which is great. He does have that up and down tilt motion as well, so again very similar to his original release. And his neck, while being pretty chunky, doesn't have too much motion to the side. He does go up and down a little bit, which is quite nice. And while we're around here, you can definitely see the scar around his chest is a lot deeper than his original one. So yeah, I think I quite like that actually. Okay, moving down to his shoulders, he does have the usual kind of butterfly joints, but he doesn't move too far out, so they haven't really changed anything there too much from his original release, it seems. Though the motion and the fluidity of the joints is nice, no real issues moving them around too much. Now, since he does have his cloth on his side here, this arm is a little bit more limited compared to his right arm. Moving down to his arm here, he does have the slightly limited range of motion there. You can basically get just a bit more than 90 degrees though. It's not too bad. A little bit more articulation would be quite nice though. His hands, yeah, about the same as normal. They swing around pretty well. Not really tight or anything like that. So that's quite nice. Now onto the main area that we want to focus on, and that is the chest. He can swivel on his main waist here and on his upper chest. So he does have a bit of motion on top, and then swivels right around on the bottom as well, which is quite nice. As for forward and back motion, he does have a little bit there, not too much, since this design here is completely flat. If I had a bit of a curve in there, I think that would have allowed for a bit more of that forward motion, which would be greatly appreciated. Going back as well is pretty limited, so forward and back motion, not the best, but left and right in the swivel is really nice. Moving down to the legs now, this is the same design as his original one, so the motion is essentially the same. That's not too bad. I mean, compared to recent figures such as Piccolo, it is definitely limited. So it would be nice if they changed this around a bit more so you can get a bit more of a spread going there with his waist and legs. Though his joints and legs do feel really nice, I like the design that they have here. It does look extremely smooth and clean when straight, and when bent it's not too bad. Though the articulation, again, a bit limited, only 90 degrees. A bit more would have been nice. And down to his feet, yeah, I mean these swivel around nicely. Yeah, no real issues here. Everything feels really nice on this figure, I must say. All the joints moving nicely. Nothing is too loose or too tight or anything like that. Everything just feels extremely solid. So it's really nice to see. Okay, on to the main event, Chiaotzu. Yeah, his head swivels around lovely. You've got that full swivel action going on, though it might be a bit hard to see, but his neck and chest is all one part, so you don't have that additional point of articulation in here, which is a little bit of a shame. I feel like they probably could have got something in there, but despite that, his head does have a great range of motion, so probably won't notice the lack of that extra joint too much. Moving on to the arms, these little delicate arms, they do sort of up and around, and in the mold of them, it does have that slight curve in there as well. So you just have that one ball peg joint in there to move around on. But despite that, it's not too bad. It does have a little bit of a back and forward motion going on, and he can swivel all the way around smoothly, which is nice. Now onto his elbow, he's got this single joint in there, so you can get bit of freakishly forward and back motion going on at the same time, so just keep that in mind. If you are moving around, make sure you do have him facing the right way, otherwise it might look a bit weird. His hands as well, they swivel around not bad. They have a slight, do they even have a joint in there? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so no pivot on the actual peg itself. It's just like any other straight peg. So you'll only get the movement that the actual ball allows. So not too much there, mostly swiveling around opposed to tilting. Onto his waist area, he has no joint there, so no left and right swivel, no forward or back motion. But onto his legs here, he does, yeah, he has pretty decent range of motion. It's actually better than 10 in that regards. He can get out pretty far, which is quite nice. And then for his knees, where is it? Here we go. So he's got the three parts in his leg there, which gives him a great range of articulation actually for a small guy, and it looks really nice. Despite the joint being huge, it still comes around pretty smooth and blends in actually a lot better than what I expected it to. So yeah, I think that's really nice. And his feet again, seems like it's just a single peg in there as well, like his hands. So not too much motion, but it's a bit bigger than your average peg, so you do have some tilting action going on. Okay, let's take a closer look at the faces. This is the default face that comes on Tien, and he's got that kind of sad, frowning look. But the printing of his eyes looks extremely crisp and clean. He's got the lines just above the bridge of his nose. His printing of his third eye is really clean as well. Moving over to the second head, this is the open mouth screaming, and that is extremely clean as well. That mouth looks so good with the tongue and the teeth going around there. All the lines in there are just super smooth and clean. And he also has the veins popping on his bald head as well. Next up is the teeth showing, mouth closed look. Kind of not sure if he's kind of a happy or angry look, kind of frustrated. What do you reckon? Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, anyway, again, the face looks good. Finally, we've got the surprised look, the shocked face going on here, and man, this looks so good. They've got the detailing on the side of the eyes there to really drive home that kind of shocked look, along with the drip of sweat. Yeah, they're definitely getting so much better at making faces these days. We'll also switch out one pair of hands on Tien here, but if you do want to see a selection of Tien and Chiaotzu in various poses before their range of accessories, then do check out the photos at the end of this video, as well as ones posted on Rockchala and Instagram as well, both linked below. If you are new to the figures and haven't changed their hands too often, I do recommend grabbing just on the forearm, grab the hand that you're changing, just give it a little swivel to make sure it's moving, and then get a nice firm grip and just pull it directly in the direction of the peg. Sometimes it may be a bit tight. If it's really hard to come off, put it into some warm water to expand the plastic a little. For these hands, they do have a slight peg hole on one and a peg on the other. Just want to line those up and they should just pop right in. And then once you kind of get the hands in the right position, you can line them up and they will kind of stick together. But yeah, that's how those hands work. It looks really cool. It's the same design as the original one as well, so it's a bit fiddly, but if you spend a bit more time adjusting all the different joints in the right direction, you can kind of get them meeting up nicely. Okay, we've got a size comparison now with the Saiyan Res on Earth Goku and the new Tenshinhan Chiaotzu. In the series, Tien is slightly taller than Goku, and yeah, in this case, I think yeah, the scaling looks really well. Chiaotzu as well, the red ball on his hat here is lining up with almost the top of Goku's leg, and I feel like this is a good matchup too. Looking at these three together, I'm really excited to get the new Trunks and Vegeta whenever they come out, so we can complete that Z Warrior lineup from the original intro. So you're not seeing double here, we do have in fact two Tien and Chiaotzu, the original Saiyan Saga release along with the latest one here, and as you can see for Tien himself, especially in his legs and lower section, they're pretty much identical, but the difference is obviously in that Chiaotzu. The original one is a lot more chubbier and obviously he's in that fixed pose. So what I want to do, I want to get a closer look at the upper bodies and mainly the faces to highlight the differences and the extra value you do get with the new figure release. For our comparison, we'll start with the head, and man, I never really expected it to be such a big difference. Whenever I take 10 out, I think, man, this is such a nice figure, it looks so good. But look at these two together, it makes the original look like a bootleg. The face on the new one is just so much more defined, the shaping is better, and the sculpting of his mouth and teeth in there as well. It looks like he's kind of sticking his tongue out in this one, you can barely see the teeth, and you can definitely see the improvement in technology with these heads alone. The lines and colouring of the new one is a lot darker as well, and you get the nice crisp black lines around his face, whereas the original one is black. It's a bit more of a charcoal colour, I would say, and yeah, just the overall lines of the new one is a lot cleaner. I mean, the original one isn't bad, but when you see these two together, man, it's like night and day. I'm really surprised. The next main thing you'll notice is the scar. The one on the original is a bit softer, it's a bit more of a lighter colouring, whereas the new one, the line is deeper, and they do have a darker shading in there as well. I like how it's deeper on the new one, but I think I might have preferred the lighter shading that the original one used. But yeah, it's not a big difference there. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the new scar or the original? The other main difference is the skin colour. The original one is a bit more, I guess, peachy colour, a bit more of the warmer tones for skin, whereas the new one is a bit softer. Definitely still flesh toned, but it's not quite as, I guess, hot. So like he's been working out with the Saiyan Saga one, opposed to the new figure. For their belt, the new one is actually a bit bigger. Not by much, maybe a few mil high, and it kind of curves out, whereas this one doesn't have that extra kind of curving up part. The colour is different as well. This is a lovely red, this is a bit more of a softer red kind of peachy, fleshy colour. The legs themselves, yeah, these do look exactly the same to me. I can't really notice any real difference there. They both have shading in almost the exact same spots. So yeah, overall in that regards, the waist down, expected to be exactly the same. I assume the shading will kind of vary slightly from figure to figure as well. So it's a bit hard to compare whether or not they do have different amounts of shading there. I feel like they're exactly the same though. The wrist parts, yeah, again, they look the same. So the main difference you are going to see is from the belt and up, mainly in the face. If you have an original and you weren't thinking of getting the new one, I would say if you can, even if you don't care about Chiaotzu, just get him for these new faces. He is definitely worth it. So much better. I'll have some better quality images for the new figure at the end of this video, so be sure to check those out as well as on rockchala.com. For Chiaotzu here, we don't have much to compare because, well, we've got a statue with a swiveling head and a fully articulated body. So if you're buying it just for Chiaotzu, yeah, you can't go wrong. 100%, he looks awesome. I do wish he came with the kind of sad crying face when he's saying goodbye to Tien though. That would have been absolutely perfect if they had it. The skin colour though, on the new one, he is a bit more grey on the face, opposed to the original, which has that completely white porcelain look. So I feel like the colouring and the detailing on the original one here is definitely nicer. The print lines and everything like that on the new one and the paint job is really good, but I wish I'd gone for that pure white face to match the original look for him, since he is a bit more kind of grey here. Surprisingly, he looks a bit more sickly in the new version. So yeah, that's a little bit of a shame, but in saying that, I mean, he's articulated. I wish I'd done the same with Gordo. So yeah, can't really complain too much about this wee guy. Jumping into the pros and cons now, and with 10, obviously the main pro is those faces. They look so good, so much better than the original. I know a lot of people were kind of complaining, I don't really want to buy another 10 just for Chiaotzu since I have one. Well, it's definitely worth it, and the new heads do fit on the old body as well, so you can bring some new life into this older figure, which is absolutely fantastic. The other pro for the new 10 is obviously does have that Cell Saga look, and while this is a bit of a personal preference, some people prefer the shirtless opposed to this look, you know, it can go either way. Personally, I think it's a bit of a pro, especially since they can line up well with that Z Warrior lineup, which is pretty cool. Next up for the pros, he has a fully articulated Chiaotzu. Now that is just awesome that we can get a figure this small, this articulated now from Tamashii Nations, which is great. Gives us a lot of hope for other small figures such as the Pilaf Gang, Goten and Trunks. And maybe we can get a Gordo in there one day. The other pros being, he does have his changeable hands, which is nice. In terms of cons, there's only the one head for Chiaotzu, and we don't have any other additional hands for Tien. He is basically exactly the same as his original release. Same with the articulation. That is definitely a bit of a con, as a lot more limited in terms of his leg spread and his shoulder area as well. If they'd done a bit more reworking around this area to give him that range, something along the lines of what the new 2.0 Piccolo has, that would have been absolutely fantastic. Though, overall, definitely worth picking up, even if you have the original. As I was mentioning, it does bring new life to that figure since you can use the same heads. Plus, you just get this awesome little bit of Chiaotzu, definitely worth getting. Let me know in the comments below what you reckon, if you got them on pre-order, if you're hyped for this figure or not. And there are also extra photos again at the end of this video, Rockchala and Instagram, so be sure to check those out. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Cheers!